Well, hello everyone, and welcome to UXI 105 Design Technologies. It is Professor Payne here, and I'm excited to welcome you to week 6 Adobe XD. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, in today's agenda, I'm going to do a course overview. Also, we're going to uh, overview week 6, and I'm going to provide you with some resources and some reminders. Now, our live sessions are recorded and saved underneath the web meetings. However, you can also find all of our live sessions on the class YouTube channel. So make sure to head over to that YouTube channel and you can access all of the pre recorded live sessions. Now, if you did miss our live session, in order to receive credit, please watch this entire video so you can submit your takeaways and receive your full credit. All right, diving right into course overview. We're going to talk about the course project briefly. And as you know, for the past couple of weeks, we've selected an event and we're creating multiple items for that event. Now, the goal is to market your entire event from start to finish and sell your clients or viewers on going to your event. So, diving right into week 6 overview, what is Adobe XD? Now, again, if you did not have a chance to attend the live session, make sure to submit all of your answers to the questions being asked in this live session over to me through Canvas in order to receive full credit. First question, icebreaker. Have you heard of Adobe XD? A 1 for yes and a 2 for no. So let's go ahead and move forward. So what is Adobe XD? Adobe XD is used to create UI and UX prototype designs such as web design, app design, brand design, and game design. When to use Adobe XD? You want to use Adobe XD to design low fidelity and high fidelity websites and mobile applications. Also, you use Adobe XD to create sketches, digital wireframes to lay out your ideas, add text, images, and also export and share your designs. Week 6 overview. This week, you will get a glimpse of Adobe XD, the UX UI prototyping application software used for user experience design. You will learn about prototyping and create a website landing page for your event. So, what is UX and UI? I'm pretty sure you've heard of it, but there are some differences. So, let's dive into those definitions. UI design, also known as user interface, refers to screens, buttons, toggles, icons, and other visual elements that you interact with using a website, app, or other electronic devices. A UI designer seeks to make apps and websites both visually appealing and easy to navigate. Now that you know a little bit about UI design, let's talk about UX design or user experience. UX refers to the entire interaction you have with the product, including how you feel about the interaction. A UX designer focuses their work on the experience a user has with the product. Their goal is to make products that are usable, accessible, and enjoyable to use. So, what are the differences between UX and UI designers? UX designers or user experience and UI designers or user interface design often go hand in hand. The two fields have some important differences. While UX encompasses the overall experience a user has with a product or service, UI focuses on the graphic design and interface. So, as you can see in the chart, UX designer, often called an interaction designer, charts the user pathway, plans information architecture, is considered an expert in wireframing, prototypes, and research. Meanwhile, a UI designer is considered a visual designer. They also choose colors and typography. They plan the visual aesthetic, and they're considered experts in mockups, graphics, and layouts. So, the objectives for week 6. Overall, the topic of discussion is interface design in Adobe XD. So, we'll go over explain the basics of prototyping, experiences, and user flow, utilize tools such as margins, columns, and artboards in Adobe XD. Also, going to create a unique and a responsive landing page interface with prototype click flows. So, what is prototyping experiences or experience prototyping? It is used to understand, explore, or communicate what it might be like to engage with the product, space, or system we are designing. It allows designers to show and test the solution through active participation of the final users that interact with mockups of specific service touchpoints. So, in this video, it will describe the differences between prototypes and wireframes. Which is better?
Imagine explaining all of Facebook's features to someone who has never used it. How would they remember how it all worked? Even if they remembered, what if their interpretation was different than what you said? The functionality of web and mobile applications get lost in translation often. There are plenty of processes and tools that software teams use to communicate how an app will work. Two of the most popular are wireframes and prototypes. Wireframes are simple black and white blueprints of an application's layout and functionality, while a prototype is a much more in-depth rendering of an application's design and functionality. Prototyping takes much longer and is generally more expensive. For an entrepreneur who is in the ideation phase, wireframes are a great tool you can leverage. They will help you convey your idea to designers, software teams, and potential partners. Aside from communication, there are other major benefits to wireframing your software ideas, with the first one being a very clear visual representation. Software teams go through a design and planning process that includes wireframing. This visual representation makes it easier for developers to build out the required page structure and take your idea's well-defined features and visually map them out on the page. This will help prevent miscommunications with a development team, allowing you to spend more time validating and iterating over the customer discovery and market validation. Another major benefit of wireframing is that it allows a major focus on user experience. Wireframes are grayscale. This is great from a user experience planning perspective. No time is spent designing individual components or worrying about animations. The core focus is the layout of the page, and more importantly, how a user will interact with the items on the pages. If you map out exactly how you want a user to interact with your app or website, you can build designs to promote those paths. The next benefit of wireframing is that it allows you to be proactive, not reactive. If you're working on a development project with a software agency like Woodhouse, they will almost always want to start with wireframes. When working with any sort of software team, it is crucial to start with a low-fidelity functionality and design and planning step. Building out the wireframes tends to expose potential issues that could show up during development. Innovating around these issues during planning will correlate to major savings during development. Another benefit to wireframing is that it will help define your minimum viable product. Some features might be very complicated while not providing much value to the user. If you or the software team are struggling to wireframe a low priority feature, then it's potentially too complicated for an MVP. Think of wireframing as a first date. At this stage of planning, it is still a relatively affordable commitment financially compared to development. This gives you a great opportunity to work with an agency or freelancer on the wireframes. You'll be able to build the relationship with a designer and account manager before deciding on moving on to the next steps. If you have an app idea or business venture around a tech product, taking your first steps to get the wireframes completed is a great idea. They are an invaluable tool that help pave the way to the future of your product.
All right, moving along. What is fidelity? Design fidelity refers to the level of detail, functionality, and realism. There are three levels of fidelity: low fidelity, medium fidelity, and high fidelity. The fidelity of a prototype slash wireframe refers to how it conveys the look and feel of the product. Now, what is low fidelity, also known as lo fi? Well, It is considered the fastest way to translate high level design concepts into tangible and testable artifacts. It is used to test user flow functionality rather than the visual appearance of the product. Also, paper prototyping and clickable wireframes are two popular low fidelity prototyping techniques to iterate design ideas. Let's elaborate on those popular techniques of lo-fi. The two popular lo-fi prototyping techniques we just mentioned are paper prototyping or hand drawings of different screens that represent user interfaces of a product, and two, clickable wireframes, which are the simplest form of interactive prototypes created by linking static wireframes together. Both are the fastest way to iterate design ideas. Now, moving along, we're going to discuss high fidelity. High fidelity is also very common, and high fidelity appears and functions as similar as possible to the actual product. It is usually created when teams have a solid understanding of what they are going to build, and they need to either test it with users or get final design approval. Digital and coded prototypes are hi-fi prototypes. To elaborate more on the popular techniques of hi-fi, the two popular hi-fi prototyping techniques, one, digital prototypes, often begins at the very first stages of development as has a faster turnaround time when making changes such as color or material alterations. And then you have coded prototypes. Both look and behave as much like the final product as possible and is the final type of prototype you create before you push your design live. So, moving on, you can see the difference between the two most common fidelity prototypes, which is lo fi and hi fi. As you can see, the lo-fi is not as detailed as hi-fi. It is basically a structure with different elements to show that the text is going to go in this place, that they are looking to put images here, and then you can see in the hi-fi that it is more put together when creating a design closer to the final product. Now, what is user flow? So, what is user flow? User flow is a chart or diagram showing the path a user will take in an application to complete a task. It depicts the physical journey of the user through an application or software. It starts when the user opens the app or website and then goes through all the different screens and options. Then it ends when they leave or finish using your app or website. So here is an example of user flow for a website. As you can see, they start on the main page, which is the home page, and then they will navigate from page to page, either through the tabs or through buttons, clicking from one page to the next. Next, we're going to discuss Adobe XD layout tools. The first XD layout tool is margins. Margins are the negative space between the edge of the format and the outer edge of the content. The margin size is what gives the content a general space. As you can see, some of these definitions are quite similar to other Adobe applications that we previously discussed. So keep that in mind as we move forward. So, next, let's discuss columns. The layout grid option enables a series of columns and gutters across the artboard. They help designers align content elements as they are laying out the page. Typically, designers use up to 12 columns on desktop, up to 8 columns on tablet design, and up to 4 columns on mobile. So let's continue on. Here is an example of columns and how they look in Adobe XD. When you enable a layout grid XD will display columns that suit the nature of the artboard. It will resize an artboard, the columns width, and the grid change to fit the new artboard size. The objects remain the same and do not maintain their relationship with the columns. Here's another term that you've probably already heard in our previous live sessions, artboards. So, in regards to Adobe XD tools, an artboard represents the area where a screen design will be created in Adobe XD. You can have multiple artboards in one document, and in the right sidebar, you can select from the most common artboards, including mobile, tablet, desktop, and wearable screen sizes, such as your Apple Watch. Here is an example of what artboards look like in Adobe XD and how they already have pre-templates for your different sizes or screens. In this next video, you will learn the basic tools of Adobe XD.
So when you first open up Adobe XD, you'll see it's pretty simple and easy to pick up, especially if you're used to Illustrator, you'll be right at home. So let's go through a quick tour of the interface. On the left side, you've got your basic shape tools and pen tool. So we've got the pointer, rectangle, ellipse, line, pen, text, artboard, and zoom. And when you hover over any of these, it'll show you the name of whatever item it is. Then at the bottom, we've got the assets and the layers panel. So in the assets, this allows you to save your colors, character styles, and symbols, so you can design really quickly. The great thing about using the assets panel is that you can change all instances of a symbol with just one click. So for instance, let's say I have some character styles over here and my client wants me to change this specific text from blue to purple. So all I would do is right click, edit, and then just change the color to purple. And then all of those instances would now be changed. So we've got there, it'd be everywhere. My favorite thing is that you can populate your library just by having one artboard selected. So let's select an artboard. Let's go ahead and do this one. You just click the plus icon to the right of any of these. If it's grayed out, you cannot add it. But if I click the plus, it'll add a whole bunch for me. I don't have to go through and add all of them individually. Click the plus next to the colors. Ton of solids and gradients. You can also use your Creative Cloud libraries to share assets from Illustrator or Photoshop. So just go up to File and then Open CC Libraries. And it will open this pop-up. Unfortunately, it's not in any of the panels, it's just a pop-up, but you can use the drop-down to choose a specific library and then just drag those assets to your artboards. And then for your layers, you can scroll through if you have a bunch, you can reorganize them, you can lock them, and turn on and off each layer. So whichever artboard you've selected, it will show the layers for that artboard. And if you don't have any artboard selected, it won't show you any layers, but it will show you your entire list of artboards, plus whatever's off the artboards, like these two items, which XD calls your pasteboard. And then on the right side is all of your details. This is your property inspector. This lets you modify the properties of whatever object is selected. So at the top you have your alignment horizontally and vertically, and then you've got repeat grid and pathfinder, then object resizing, rotation, and flip, then responsive resize, you can turn that on or off, and then your appearance panel. So opacity, rounded corners, your fill, border, your colors, and you can choose a dotted line, the end cap styles, if you want it rounded or not. And depending on what object you have selected, it'll show you certain property options. Like if I have this rectangle selected, I can add a shadow or a background blur, an object blur. A quick thing that I want to point out is that you definitely want to make use of the free plugins and UI kits that Adobe XD offers. So you can access the UI kits by going up to File, Get UI Kits, and then just choose whichever one you want. I highly recommend the Apple iOS one. I use that one a lot. Just download for Adobe XD, and then this is what it looks like. You've got a ton of different templates. I use this one all the time to see the safe areas and the menus at the top bar, so I don't have to redo those all the time. And there are a ton of plugins available, so to find those, you just go up to plugins, discover plugins, and developers are always making new ones, so you can simply browse through and choose whichever ones you want to install. And I recommend using blend colors and lorem ipsum for a bunch of placeholder text. So let's get back to the tour. So far we have been in the design tab, but if you go to the right, we've got the prototype tab as well. So this allows designers to link between your different artboards and define all of the interactions between them. Then once you're done, you can go up here and preview the whole app by clicking the play button at the top right and clicking through all the screens, or you can share it with your team. So first you want to assign a home page that the prototype will start on. So the home page is indicated by this little blue home icon at the top left here, and you can change that to any of your artboards. So when you press this play button, that indicates which screen it will start on. Then when you want to start adding interactions, simply click the artboard and drag this little arrow to the right of your screen and drag it to another artboard. Once you've done that, you can click the pop-up and define a whole bunch of interaction options. I'll just try to go through these quickly. So we've got the trigger. This is when the action starts. And by default, it happens when you're tapping on an object, but you can also add a timeout so that the screen automatically changes to the destination after a certain amount of time. You've got drag and voice, so you can play around with those. Then we've got action, so this changes the destination screen. The default is transition, and another action is overlay, so that can be used for accessing menus or other screens that are over the current screen. And you can choose previous artboard, and that just makes it go back to the previous one. Then the destination is just the next screen at the end of your arrow, so instead of clicking and dragging, you can just use this drop down to find whichever artboard you want. Then we've got the animation. This one's pretty self-explanatory. It's the effect that happens from one screen to another. So you can choose dissolving, whatever kind of sliding or pushing you want. And you can select the easing and the duration of the effect. So then we have auto animate. This is probably the coolest and one of my favorite features of XD. So instead of using a ton of transitions to make objects move, XD automatically determines what objects to move and how. So for instance, to move all of these circles from left to right, I used auto animate. Then once you're done creating all of your interactions, you can preview the entire prototype as I mentioned, clicking that arrow, and then this makes a new pop-up appear. You can navigate through the different screens. So you have two options with preview, either on your computer itself like I'm doing now, or you can preview real time on your phone with the Adobe XD app. So one of my favorite things is the record option. And right now there are no options to save as a different file format or file quality, but it's still great to be able to share or post your design so others can see it. So you'll see you can save it wherever you want, which is really neat. Now I'm going to share some pro tips that'll save you a ton of time, and these are just really neat features of this program. So first is repeat grid. If you have a ton of items like this circle that you need to reproduce, instead of copying and pasting all of them, you can choose repeat grid over here to simply drag and add as many as you want, and you can do vertical or horizontal as well. You can also adjust the padding in between all of the rows and columns really easily. Then we've got scrolling. So you can add this to any page simply by clicking on the artboard and dragging the bottom of the screen down. And you'll see this new icon appears on the bottom, and that indicates where you want the bottom of the page to be, so you can adjust that. And if you want certain objects to stay while you're scrolling, such as maybe this menu bar up here, just go over to the property inspector and check the box for fixed position when scrolling. So we'll see when we scroll this part will stay still. And while you're designing, if you want to add any grids, you can go back over to the properties panel and check the grid area. And you can add as many columns as you want, edit the gutter width as well. So like in Illustrator, if you want to merge two different shapes with the Pathfinder tool, you can select them and come up here and merge them. But only XD allows you to make these Boolean groups unboolean if you change your mind. So all you have to do is go into your layers panel. You can double click to see the ellipse and rectangle are still there. So just double click on whichever one you want to take out and cut it and then paste, and they will be detached separate objects. Next, if you want to add images quickly, if you have a ton of images in a folder, let's say like I do here, I have a bunch of screenshots of different ice cream flavors. All you have to do is just select all of the items that you want and then just drag them over into your repeat grid.
All right, so here is the next question being asked. What is your biggest takeaway from the video you just watched? And again, if you did not get a chance to attend the live session, please go ahead and submit your answer through Canvas inbox so you can receive full credit. Okay, so now that we reached the end of this live session, I just want to give you some reminders about the assignments that are due for week 6. So, in your textbook, you're going to read Chapter 9 of Foundations of Digital Art and Design. You're also going to do your Learn It, which is about prototyping experiences. And then you have 2 discussion posts that are due in week 6. The first discussion post is for you to share your sketches for your website landing page. And then your second discussion post is for you to post an image of a website landing page that you are inspired by and explain why. Lastly, you will submit your official landing page for your event that you created in Adobe XD to me through the Canvas portal. To discuss a little bit more on the week 6 assignment, first, you will sketch out 3 to 5 web page variations that will be used to promote your event in different ways. Next, you're going to watch the video with Cameron creating his website landing page in Adobe XD. And for his example, he is creating a website landing page that is based around his Halloween event. And lastly, in Adobe XD, you're going to create your landing page for your event that promotes your ticket sales using your logo, banner image, and promotional copy, and, and combine it in a responsive website landing page. Next, I have a resource for you to view this 5-minute video. And in this video, the designer is going to show you how he created his website landing page in Adobe XD.
What's a landing page without a full width image? With the rectangle tool, draw one out across the entire artboard, which in this project is 1920 by 1080. With that in place, we need a photo. Hopping over to Finder, I have a great shot of Japan that I'll drag right onto the rectangle. And just to focus it up a touch, I'll double click to scale and reposition. Next up, we need some headers. With the text tool, type out a catchy title that relates to the location of the photo. And for maximum impact, choose a large font with a color that stands out against the background. Now, to add a bit more context, a subheader can be quickly added by duplicating the larger one and dropping the size by pulling on the handle. For this, I'll add in a few cities in Japan that I'm dying to visit. Against this particular image, positioning the text towards the bottom left corner looks pretty nice, but feel free to move it around to find the optimal location. At the top of this page, we may want a navigation bar and a bold call to action to book a trip. With another rectangle, I'll draw one out, leaving a bit of room on the sides. White should do for now. I can now quickly duplicate this rectangle with Command or Control D, and then reduce this one in size to use for the button. Since this should be eye-catching, a vibrant color will surely do the job. Great, let's throw in some additional text. For the call to action, I'm going to use the same typeface as the header with a nice bold weight. To help you out with elements like this, you can place the text and background shape in a group or component, and then turn on padding within the Properties Inspector. Now, with the text right justified, the container will automatically resize if you need to change the label. Next, over to the left, we need a logo and some links. Instead of an icon-based logo, I'm going to use the kanji characters for Japan, and I'll sample a dark blue from the mountains. As for the links, 4 should work, and instead of the uppercase typeface I've been using, I'll switch it up to one that's somewhat condensed. Now I can either use a repeat grid if the labels are going to be around the same length, or the distribution options. With all 4 text layers created, I'll select them all and the logo, then press the Distribute Horizontally button to ensure they're all spaced evenly from each other. Finally, to complete this navigation area, I may want to introduce a bit of color to the white bar. And to do that, a very subtle background blur can be added, with the amount value cranked all the way up, and the brightness set pretty high so that just a touch of the background seeps through. Wonderful, that's looking pretty good, but before we move on, I'm going to quickly group and organize my elements to keep the project nice and tidy. The final feature of this landing page I want to touch on is a clickable image gallery, and for that, we're going to be using components. At the bottom right corner of the page, I'm going to start by drawing out a rectangle that will allow us to click over to another image, and I'll add another background blur to this shape, but quite a bit darker than the navigation bar. With that in place, we need an arrow. You can either create one using the pen tool, or bring one in from a plugin or icon set. I'll quickly grab one from the Icons for Design plugin, enlarge it, then change the color to white. Great. Now to create the component, we'll want to select not only the navigation arrows, but the background image as well. The plus button within your Properties Inspector or Assets panel will let you create the component, and if during the creation it moves up in the layer stack, bring it back down behind all the other elements. We can then create an additional state, which will allow us to transition to another image. All we need to do now is select the background layer, switch back over to Finder, and drag a new image in, and you can repeat the process to add as many images as you wish. If you find that the blurs aren't interacting well with the background, you can tweak them on a state-by-state basis, or edit the default to change them all at once. With that in place, let's wire it up. Hopping into prototype mode, I'll select the arrow that I want to transition to the other state, and then single-click on the blue handle. This will then let me select the destination state within the properties. As for the action, there isn't much to animate here, but we may want a nice fade between the images. So I'll go with a transition with the animation set to dissolve, and a duration of around 0.8 seconds. I can then add additional interactions on the other states leading to any other images I may have within this component. And when the prototype is launched, we can cycle through the beautiful gallery.
All right, so let's move on to responsive landing page interfaces. Check out this 1-minute video. Now, lastly, I have a video tutorial for you to watch on how to create prototype click flows to connect your screens from one screen to the next. Check it out.
Hi there! In this video, I will show you how to create prototypes in Adobe XD. Let's say I have my design finished and it's now time to prototype my app so I can tell the story of my app to a developer, to a stakeholder, so I can convey my message, my story. For that, let's use the sample file because I have some designs there. And here you start in design mode. To create prototypes, you have to jump to prototype mode. So on the top left, click on prototype. Now you're in prototype mode. To start things off, to move one thing from another, to start screens to move, you have to wire items to other artboards. For example, let's say I want to say that as soon as the user clicks on sign in, I want to jump to this artboard. To do that, I'm in prototype mode. I select this item, the signing button, and I click on this arrow on the right, and I just drag a wire to the artboard I want to go to. In this case will be slide left, so it will slide to the left. And when I click on this icon, I want to go back to my first artboard, so I can say, okay, this will be slide right now. All right, when everything is done, I can click on the preview button. I start here. This is my home artboard. I can see it's my home artboard because this home icon here, I can set the home artboard to be a different artboard, but in this case it's this one. And as soon as I click here, sign in, and I click back, my interaction just works. Remember I said I could change the home artboard? Let's say now this one is the home artboard. I have nothing selected, and this is the one that shows up first. And I can wire multiple artboards. If I want to remove a wire, I click on the arrow and I just drag to the middle, and then that wire is removed.
Now, here is some additional information. In web design, responsive means that web pages render well on a variety of devices, window, or screen sizes. You may also choose to include a screenshot or cover frame of your video, or you can add your video to Adobe XD by following these instructions below. But you can choose either or to just add a screenshot or embed your video ad into Adobe XD when you are showcasing your Adobe XD website landing page. Now, here are some landing page requirements that you want to make sure that you're including before you submit your assignment. You want to include your event logo that you created in week 2. You want to include your banner image that you created in week 3, contact information, also ticket options with a call to action button. And throughout the website, you want to include that call to action button. Also, event details and promotional copy that you created, making your promotional flyer. And then you want to either add that video ad that you created in Adobe Premiere Pro, or you can add just a screenshot of your video ad that you created in week 5 in Adobe Premiere Pro. Next, you want to create a navigation menu and footer. And lastly, you want to include your newsletter with a submit button. So if you look to the right, you can see some important information with arrows pointing to the correct portions of the landing page, which will include starting with the event logo and your navigation menu, your banner image, some event details, also some contact information, some call to action buttons, your ticket options, promotional copy, also your event logo at the bottom of the footer, and also include your newsletter with your submit button. So I'm going to just give you your week 6 to-do list as a reminder. And for your to-do list, you are going to check out the week 6 overview. Also read chapter 9 of your Foundations of Digital Art and Design. Watch the live session number 5 p.m. Watch the replay. Also engage in Yellow Dig discussions during week 6 with your initial post due Wednesday, August 17th. Okay, and then you're going to earn your 1,000 points in Yellow Dig during week 6. And also that is due August 21st. You're going to complete your Learn It and Prototyping Experiences, which is due Sunday, August 21st. And then you are going to submit your assignment, which is your web landing page you created in Adobe XD, due also by Sunday, August 21st by 11:59 p.m. Now that we've reached the end of this live session, please let me know if you have any questions or comments or